49-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to slowly drop out of orbit for its high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. Some 28 minutes after the deorbit burn, with the Soyuz pointed in the direction of travel back to Earth, there will be a command for the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz. That module separation scheduled at 6:33 and 32 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:33 and 32 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. Just 3 minutes after the module separation, with the Soyuz heat shield in the direction of travel to ablate the heat that will build up around the Soyuz to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, the Soyuz will enter into the plasma regime, if you will. This is the period of peak heating on the spacecraft as it re-enters the atmosphere. That plasma regime and a blackout of communications is likely to last about 5 minutes in duration, with the crew then experiencing maximum G loads of about 4 to 5 Gs on their bodies, also experiencing the first tug of gravity against themselves. For Kononenko and Chub, the first sensation of gravity in over a year. For Tracy Dyson, the first sensation of gravity in over 6 months. The command to open the parachutes on the Soyuz is scheduled at an altitude of about 6.5 miles above the Earth. The command is scheduled to be issued at 6:44 and 55 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:44 and 55 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. The parachute deployment sequence is triggered by a barometric pressure sensor at an altitude of 41,000 feet. At this point, the main parachute cover is jettisoned by pyros and springs that pulls out 2 extraction chutes, which in turn pulls out the drogue chute. That in turn pulls out the main chute on the Soyuz. This all takes about 20 seconds to occur. At about 18,000 feet in altitude, commands are then issued to jettison the heat shield, inhibit the entry control thrusters, and to open up valves to vent all the hydrogen peroxide fuel for the entry control thrusters and the oxygen in the life support system tank. If we are fortunate enough to have video from the landing site at that time, you may see a white vapor emanating from the Soyuz. That's a normal occurrence, a combination of hydrogen peroxide and oxygen venting into the air. The purpose of this is to safe the vehicle for landing. The search and recovery forces and the Energia recovery teams do not want any hazardous gases to remain in those tanks when the soft landing thrusters fire about 2 seconds before touchdown and before the vehicle is back on Earth. This way, the ground support team can approach the vehicle immediately to begin safing the vehicle and extracting the crew from the spacecraft. Today's landing is scheduled about 1 hour and 13 minutes before sunset at the landing site in Kazakhstan. Landing scheduled at 6:59 and 22 seconds a.m. Central Time, 7:59 and 22 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 4:59 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. The weather forecast issued by the Spaceflight Meteorology Group calls for scattered clouds at 8,000 feet, scattered clouds at 25,000 feet, winds out of 280 degrees, 18 knots, peaking to 24, a bit breezy, but the temperature is ideal for this first full day of the autumnal equinox. 73 degrees Fahrenheit scheduled to greet the crew as they're extracted from the Soyuz spacecraft. The Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces departed the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, several hours ago. Embedded in that team is half a dozen NASA support personnel. They flew on an Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft from Karaganda to Zhezkazgan, which is just about 91 miles to the northwest of the intended landing site for the Soyuz vehicle. The search and recovery forces and the NASA team are at the Zhezkazgan airport. They will board helicopters right around the time of the deorbit burn to begin to make their way to the landing site and ultimately move into a racetrack pattern around the landing site in those helos, awaiting the arrival of the